Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. Today I have a special outfit planned for you guys in cooperation with PFAFF. So we're gonna do a lot of embroidery. I'm gonna show you some special tricks and tips, and we're gonna do a special technique called cutwork. I'm gonna show you all about that, how to do that, and what beautiful designs you can make. So let's get started right away with another amazing wedding dress. So my plan for this week's video is right here. You can see the drawing that I did for the wedding dress. Obviously, you don't have to do this as a wedding dress. This would work perfectly well as an evening gown or some sort of formal wear. So just change the color to not white or do whatever you want. Obviously, you're the designer here and you're free to do whatever you want. So I'm gonna do this whole dress in white to make a wedding dress. And as you can see, the sleeves are this beautiful embroidered floral pattern, and I'm going to show you how to do that. I have already something prepared. This is one of the embroideries that I want to do per sleeve. So I'm gonna do this on a synthetic voile. So this is a huge design. As you can see, if I hold it up in front of me, it is really huge, and I'm actually going to embroider this on the biggest hoop that I own and that PFAFF also makes for this machine, which is amazing. It is the 36 times 35 centimeter hoop, which looks like this, so it is very big. And this is special because you have to flip this around during the embroidery process. So let's not talk around the bush and get started right away. I'm gonna do the other side of the one that I already have, so I have to mirror the design, and then it's all on the machine because it's doing everything automatically apart from the flipping around thing, but it's going to tell you when and what to do. So let's get started. So I already have a piece of my fabric cut out right here to the size of my hoop, meaning that I cut it out bigger than my hoop so I can actually hoop it, which is very important. So that's the size I am going for. And then I'm going to cut off a piece made from water-soluble stabilizer. That is very important. You want to have a stabilizer that you can remove after you're done. You cannot make this without stabilizer. So this one is a water-soluble one, and I actually like this one very much. I'm going to show you the process of removing this stabilizer once we're done embroidering as well. So let's get this hooped in. So don't worry about the width of this stabilizer. It's a tiny bit too narrow, but we're gonna make do with what we got here because the hoop is so huge. There's literally no other way than, what I am doing here now. I already used this method a couple of times and it worked well, so I'm going to continue using this method for my project. So as you can see, the stabilizer is too narrow, but once you base around your hoop, your stabilizer is fixed in place and fused together with your fabric, which is hooped, so it has enough strength. And now I'm gonna go over to my PFAFF creative icon and I'm gonna put the hoop in and show you how to mirror the design and place the design and whatnot. And then we're gonna get embroidering. So first, let's actually switch this to the embroidery setting. Okay, so I focused you on the display right now because I'm going to put all of the settings in to be able to embroider on the big hoop. First thing that I want to do is change the hoop setting to the Creative Grand Dream hoop right here, which is the biggest one that we're using. Now you can see there is this space in the center, which is basically some sort of blind spot. It can sew in there, but you can't solely have an embroidery design in that area because you have to switch the whole hoop around. Like, the machine is crazy, but it also has its limits. So let's go into my folder right here, and I think it's in my vault. Yes, it's this design right here. It's a very big design, which is made for this hoop specifically. So now I want to go into my layers and add them to a group because I want to mirror this whole thing. So I'm gonna go on mirroring by the y-axis basically, and that's the design that I want to do. Another thing is I'm going to embroider with a high quality sewing thread, not embroidery thread, because I don't want to have the shine. I want to have a matte embroidery, but as long as you're using a high quality thread, that is in my experience also no problem. Just don't use low quality threads because it's gonna rip all the time. Like, you don't want to have that. Okay, and with all of that set now, I can go on Go and put some settings in here. So I'm doing everything in one color, and then right here I want the machine to baste around the design, I think. Yeah, and then I can go on OK. The machine is setting everything, and now it tells me to put the hoop in. Click on OK, and it's going. Okay, so the embroidery is now done. It told me that it is done, so I am free to just pop the hoop out of the machine, and that's the result. Looks really, really pretty. I'm gonna take it off the hoop in a second and then also show you how to, remove the backing, which is really satisfying. So let's get going. Okay, I have my hoop right here, and I'm just gonna de-hoop it by opening up the clamps right here. And then I can take the whole piece out. Now it's very important to remove the basting stitch right here, which is fairly easy as it is a basting stitch and, therefore a super wide stitch. Okay, and now you want to go around with your scissors and remove the most of this stabilizer from your design already. Be careful not to cut into your fabric. Okay, that's all you have to do. And now you need a bowl of warm water, just like that one. I'm gonna zoom you in because that's where the magic happens now. And now you wanna put the whole thing with the stabilizer and everything into the bowl, and that's where everything gets removed. It's as easy as that. And now you want to carefully wash the piece, and then you hang it up and let it dry. And once it's dry, I went ahead and prepared another design, and that's what it looks like once it's dry. Obviously, we have to iron it now. Be sure to do an ironing test so that your iron is not too hot. I already did that in previous designs. Okay, and that's what it looks like. And now to cut this out, you can go ahead and use your scissors. Just be careful not to cut the threads when you go around this whole piece. And depending on what fiber you're using, since I am using synthetic threads, I'm gonna go ahead and kind of melt down the edges with a lighter, or you can also use a soldering iron in a well-ventilated area, but cutting out works very well. You just want to make sure that you're not cutting into the embroidery. Now the next thing that I want to do is, as I said before, some cut work. If you've never heard about that before, it's a very, very nice technique where you basically basically sewing with some sort of knives, so not with a thread for parts of your embroidery. And the knives basically cut out some portions of the design, and you know, the machine does all of the rest of, you know, so that it doesn't fray, does some satin stitches and whatever the design calls for, all on its own. And we have some special needles for that. You can get them from PFAFF. They look like this, and when you look closer, you'll see that they're pretty short, and those are the knives that I was talking about. There is not a hole where you can put the thread through and nothing. It's just a knife. And they have 4 different levels basically, where your machine, your design calls for number 1 through 4, and they have different cut knives so that the threads from your weave are getting cut off neatly. And then that's a really, really nice design aspect as well. And I want to show you how to do that. So let's go over to the sewing machine. Okay, I decided to go with a design, which is, as I already said, a cutwork design. I have it right here on my machine already. So what I did was I went on mysewnetcom and picked a cutwork design. I'm gonna put all the info in the description box down below, so you can also, you know, check it out and get that for yourself. So I send it to a mySewnet compatible machine, which in my case is my sewing machine. So I can just click on my sewing machine, and there you already have it in your design that you're working on at the moment. So I want to have 2 because I'm thinking about doing it as like some cuff element. So I'm going to have 2. Obviously, I'm going to mirror this design. I know this one is mirrored, but just to be sure. So now I have 2 mirrored designs like that. And I'm just going to go ahead and tell the machine to go for it, basically. And what the machine is going to do, it's going to tell me when I need to change my needle to cutwork needles. So the red portion down here is your first cutwork needle. They're color coded, so you can always see which one is which. The red is number 1, yellow, green, and then blue. But the machine is going to tell you that as well. And what is also pretty handy, you have an app called Sew Notice, where you can always check out where your machine is at the moment, at which stage, which I'm using all the time because I'm not always here when the machine is embroidering. So I always have something to check. So now, since I have all of that, I can tell my machine to go. And now that the step is done, it actually tells me to switch to the first cutwork needle, to the red one, which is color coordinated down here. So I'm gonna do that, which means that there is no thread for the next step needed. So I'm gonna take all of that out. So I'm gonna take out the needle that I was working with now, and I'm gonna switch it to the first one of the cutwork needles. And here you have to be super careful. That is a knife down there. The needles come with a helpful tool, which is this right here, where you put your needle in here. It's in the shape of your needle so that you can actually, without having to touch the blade, put it in here and then just screw it. And it is now in place. And what I like to do is like go on super slow and click go. And it already cuts. I hope you can see that. And now, same as before, it told us to change the needle from the red one, which I'm gonna do with the tool again. Super easy like that, and then you don't have to touch the blade whatsoever. From the red one to the yellow one, which is another blade, but this time the blade's orientation is different, like it's towards another side. So let's put this in like so. And I'm gonna start slow again because I'm scared. So I have some scissors that I can use for that. I'm gonna check which one is my favorite for this. So here is my design, ignore all of that. I also have struggles sometimes. So the first one that I want to use is this kind of mini scalpel-y kind of pair of scissors. And I'm just gonna go around here and see where the fabric still needs a trim. Most of it is already done for us through the cutwork needle, but something still needs a little bit of help. As you can see, this is perfectly trimmed out. And as you can see, there is not a lot of trimming that I have to do. I just have to help it a tiny bit. Like that. Look at that, that looks so satisfying. And with that prepped now, I'm gonna go over to the machine again and let it embroider around it and secure everything and finish this whole piece. I have all of my embroidery pieces ready, and I already went ahead and assembled one of the sleeves just to get an idea of what I am doing, or like, you know, what I want to show you and stuff. So this is the finished sleeve. It has this beautiful cutwork cuff that I showed you just now, and all of the other sleeve is embroidered. It has like a silicone layer up here so that it doesn't slide down, and yeah. Let's work on the other sleeve together. I prepared a kind of backing. This is a kind of stretchy, not really stretchy, but you don't need stretch for this pattern, mesh in a nude color. So the first thing that I will be doing is put the dart in and finish the upper edge right here to put the elastic in there. Down here, we're gonna end up cutting the section down here a bit shorter, but we'll do that once the actual cuff is going in so that we know how much we need to shorten it. By the way, this has a snap button closure and also shapes the sleeve a tiny bit more, so that's really nice. Let's start with the dart, and I need to figure out which side I need to make. So this is this side, so this is going to be this side. Okay, so let's put right sides together and close the dart. Let's iron the dart towards the back. And for the upper edge right here, I'm just going to fold down about 5 millimeters and top stitch this down. After that, I have a piece of the elastic with the silicone on it, which is, you know, a tiny bit smaller than the actual sleeve. You don't need much. After I sewed this down, I'm just gonna top stitch this right here, so that it kind of is teeny tiny bit underneath the finished edge. And I also recommend you actually sew this with the elastic facing down, because it's gonna stick to your presser foot, and this way the machine actually moves the whole thing forward. So that's what I'm gonna do as well. The next thing that I did was to kind of place my embroidery pieces that I have somehow onto my sleeve, and since I already have one, I'm just gonna copy my placement. I took a photo of it so that I, you know, can replicate it. But I'm going to cut out this piece here as well, so that I always am working with cut out pieces like this. Since I'm gonna use the freehand sewing option on my creative icon to actually like put this in place right here. So let me just quickly cut this out. Okay, I'm also going to kind of pin down the elastic so that it is stretched out, and I can pin all of my embroideries onto a flat surface. That's pretty important because this is not elastic, and otherwise you're just not gonna fit into the sleeve. So obviously I need to mirror this whole thing so that I know exactly how to place everything. And obviously this is totally up to you, however you want to do this. You can overlap more or less, whatever you want. Go crazy with it. think I adjusted the design a teeny tiny bit, so I'll have to check this sleeve here as well. I adjusted the leaves up here, but I don't have the same pieces in green for that, so I'm just gonna, you know, freehand this and just put this up here so that the line here is covered up. And then I'm just gonna place it somewhere here in the center so that it is kind of where I placed it on the other sleeve. Yeah, I think I like that. Now I just need to pin this in place because I'm going to freehand this onto my backing right there. Okay, everything is pinned in place. I'll remove the pins obviously as I sew. A few key elements that are important. As the sleeve side seams are not closed yet, do not go any further than, let's say, 2 centimeters towards the edges. It's just easier to sew everything together if you have a little bit more room than just your seam allowance. So I'll not sew anywhere into like this and this area here at like 2 centimeters. So I'm just gonna leave this there. Then do not sew anything on down here because we still have this piece which goes underneath all of this at the very, very end. I forgot this piece. Let me check where I put this. Oh, up here. I don't think I need it. I'm leaving it out. Okay, so don't sew anywhere down here. Like leave this free, like go over top here. Up here, put pins in vertically, like perpendicular to the elastic, and always have a beginning pin and an ending pin and in between, because once you remove these and you don't have the pins in here, you don't know exactly where to place like these singular pieces that are attached to a bigger piece. So just add a few pins just to be super sure. If you find any areas where you feel like you need more pins, just put them in. As I said, you're gonna remove them as you go anyway. So I think that's all. So let's go over to the sewing machine. I have my 60-foot right here, so the one that I'm usually using for embroidery. On your sewing machine you can just simply tip on freehand at your straight stitch. It's in the bottom. I'm gonna start somewhere in the middle where there's a lot. I also put the machine to kind of slow because I'm intimidated by that, but I also have more control if I, you know, put the speed to a teeny tiny bit slower than what I usually do. And then I can just start, move everything around. Don't go too close to the edge. And obviously I'm gonna try to go with the flow of the designs so that you're not gonna be able to see the stitches too much. So that worked really, really well. You can not really see where you stitched the embroidery onto your piece, so that's really nice. One thing that I'm gonna go ahead and do now is to actually cut down the portion down here. I did that later on for the other sleeve, and it's just so much easier if you do it now. So I'm gonna go ahead and measure right up until where this is gonna get cut down so that I can mirror that to the other side. So it's 8 centimeters, and if I turn away your flowers right here, I know that I have to cut up until there. So let me just go ahead and cut that. We don't need any of that. And now you can go ahead and also sew the remaining stuff onto the backing, and we can then close the side seams. And now, you know, you can see why we left all of this open, so that we can put right sides together of the mesh and close the side seams. To make my life a tiny bit easier while sewing the side seam close, I'm actually going to pin the embroidery out of the way so that I have, you know, no worries that it's gonna be sewn into the seam. Like that. And now we can put right sides together and close the side seam. This fabric does not fray, so I'm gonna cut this down to 5 millimeters If your fabric frays, you want to think about either doing a French seam or overlocking, depending on what type of fabric you're using and what occasion you're making this for. But for me, this is pretty easy since it doesn't fray. It's not going to be visible in the end at all. So I'm just going to cut it down to 5 millimeters. And now I can already turn it right sides out. Just be careful with the pins to not stab yourself. And that is what your sleeve looks like as of right now. Pretty funny. So I'm gonna take my sleeve board here and put my sleeve on it so that I have a kind of flat surface to work on. I'm also going to iron the seam allowance flat. I want it to face towards the back. And now it's just a matter of putting this like right on top of each other, however you see fit. You know, you can do this way or that way. Whatever you like, honestly. I'll have to undo a few stitches down here because I can't put this underneath, but that's fine. And now I'm gonna go ahead and hand sew this in place. So this is gonna take me quite a while, so I'll be back once it's done. So now it's time for me to put the sleeve on so I can determine where exactly I need to add my cuff. So I'm gonna put this on however it's supposed to go, and my cuff is supposed to go right at the center of my hand, like this. And now I'm gonna put some pins in so that I know what orientation my cuff needs to be. And now I think I'm gonna put my other sleeve that I already did right here so that I can kind of copy the placement. So I see that this is supposed to be somewhere here. So I think something like that. So it's gonna like go out this way a tiny bit. And here I can now see where my snap buttons go. This is supposed to go over here. So this is supposed to go over here somewhere. So I'm just gonna put some dots like that. And then this one shapes the sleeve kinda. I guess. But I think this looks pretty nice. Look at that. Looks super mirrored. I love that. So I'm gonna go ahead and also sew the embroideries together here. I can just, you know, put this flat under my machine and go over this part here. No problem. And then I have to sew the snap buttons on by hand, obviously. And that's it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed this very different, very advanced project. A huge thank you to PFAFF for sponsoring today's video. Obviously, it's amazing to have such a versatile sewing and embroidery machine at hand and to be able to just make whatever you feel like with so many more options. So go check them out. I'll link the website down in the description below. If you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel and ring the bell so you'll get notified every time that I post. I post on Sunday, so you can keep an eye out for that. Leave a comment for the algorithm if you would. That would be amazing because then my channel could be suggested to other interested people out there. So thank you so much for that. On my Instagram and social media, you'll find the link in the description down below. I am doing short format content, so if you're interested in that, hit follow there. A special thank you to my channel members. You'll get exclusive benefits through the link in the description down below. The pattern, as well as any other patterns that you see me sew here on my channel, will be available on my Etsy shop. The link directly to that pattern is in the description box down below. That's the most direct way to support me and keep videos just like this one coming. So thank you so much, and I'm gonna see you next Sunday. Bye guys!